Alright, next we got UFC 99, Rich 8 Franklin versus Vanderlei, the axe murderer Silva. We got a lot of great fights coming up. Man, what you think? Who you think gonna win? I'm putting my money on Vanderlei.
Oh, look at these fighters, Mike. Both of them need a win. They're both veterans of MMA. Well, Vanderlei just came to UFC a couple years ago, but they both need a victory. You know, Vanderlei came off a tough loss against Rampage.
Yeah, he did.
You know, vicious knockout in the first round, and Henderson basically lost a decision in a 3-round fight. He thought he won against Dan Henderson. That was another dream match because it was a former Pride champion versus a former UFC champion at the middleweight division. But, you know, moving on, we now know this fight will be fought at 195 pounds.
195? Okay.
Yeah, it's a catch weight because Vanderlei wants to move down to make the cut to 185, middleweight, to look for better success in his fights. And Rich wants to stay at 205.
So they're going to just meet at 195?
Yeah, that's what we've learned.
Alright, that should be interesting. I seen, it looked like, yeah, I know Rich got a little bit more reach, a little bit more height on him, and he got the speed. But me personally, I like Vanderlei Silva. He's a great fighter. Pride, he did his thing in Pride. Then he went on to UFC and started doing his thing. He got a good record. You know, yeah, I know he just lost that last match, but I think he's gonna recover from that, and he's gonna go ahead and get the big win over Rich Franklin.
How you see him gain that victory?
You know what, man? He's so good. He got so much power. I think he's gonna knock him out. I say third round.
Third round?
Third
well,
round,
the key is what the fight gets on the ground. We know that Rich Franklin is a brown belt in jiu-jitsu. Vanderlei is a black belt in jiu-jitsu, but however, Vanderlei favors the stand-up more. So if the fight gets on the ground, I think Franklin's more prepared and maybe make him tap out. I see a submission victory on Franklin's behalf, maybe in the second round. But it's so hard to call. These guys are great fighters, great veterans. This is a dream match because, again, Vanderlei was a former champion in Pride, the light heavyweight, with the light heavyweight title. And Rich Franklin held the middleweight title in UFC before he fought Anderson Silva. But the spider came trickling down along.
Spider Silva, yep.
As you see him back here. But, you know, so Rich Franklin's looking to go to greener pastures in the light heavyweight division. He's established himself with a victory over Matt Hamill. That's his first victory in the division since moving back there. However, he did lose a tough fight to Dan Henderson, a fight that he thought he should have won. He was like, well, what are, you know, they already robbed me of the fight, but they're going to rob my wallet too? Should I go back and check and rob my wallet?
Yeah, I know he was pretty pissed about that one.
Yeah, so it's going to be a good fight, but Franklin wants to stand up too. But I say if it gets on the ground, it's all Franklin's.
You know, it looked like, I could see this match being a toe-to-toe match, them standing up, just going back and forth with each other. I think it could end up being a just straight-up kickboxing match, unless they go down on the ground. Do you think that's a possibility that there could be a stand-up toe-to-toe? And I personally think if it end up being a toe-to-toe, I think Vanderlei gonna get him. I agree with you about the submission. I mean, getting him down. I think Rich can get the submission in if he get him down. But standing up, I gotta give it to Vanderlei. That's just my personal opinion about the whole thing.
Yeah, Vanderlei is one of those guys that has a high threshold for pain. He'll go right through punches, but that's also his weakness because these punches will land on him. And right now, we've seen that he may have a sign of a glass jaw after that fight against Rampage, that quick knockout. You know what I'm saying? I mean, he's been knocked out quite a few times, you know, in his career, and unfortunately, we might see him lose this fight if he keeps it standing. So again, I think he might want to play it safe and not do straight up kickboxing because it won't last that long. You know, he calls himself the axe murderer, but I believe, Mike, the axe has been dulled. How can you murder someone with a dull axe, you know? I'm giving it to Rich Franklin, standing up or on the ground. I think Franklin can throw more precise strikes. Again, it's all about precision. I think he's a more precise fighter when it comes to the stand-up. But Vanderlei, you know, he got a barrage of punches, but out of those punches, how many are going to land accurately? That's the key.
Yeah, that's true. Moving on to the next fight, we got Congo versus Vasquez. What you think about that?
Oh man, that's a crazy fight.
That's gonna be a good one.
Heavyweights, I love the heavyweight division, and you know, Congo, he's taking this fight on short notice. He was originally Heath Herring was supposed to face Velasquez.
Yeah.
We now know Velasquez is 5-0, but he's never had a true test in the striking game.
That's why I'm putting my money on Congo because I mean, after 5 fights, all 5 wins. They all were knockouts, right?
By Vasquez in the first round, except his last one, which was in the second.
They all were KO victories, but you going up against Congo, a at Congo. I mean, this guy got a good record. He got way more experience. I mean, over 20 fights versus 5 fights. Experience does count a lot. You know, it's very important to have experience, and you know that's why I'm pretty much giving my money to Congo. Even though I'm not saying Vasquez ain't a good fighter, he do his thing too. But you just can't. You can't put 5 fights. You can't put your money on a guy that got 5 fights and get somebody that got over 20 fights.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Definitely.
Experience is extremely important in this
I agree. And you remember Congo's last victory on Hardong? He bloodied out with some vicious ground and pound on a bloody Hardong.
Exactly. So.
And I think if it does get to the ground, Congo has the advantage with some vicious ground and pound, maybe even pulling off a submission. But standing up, you never know. Vasquez is going to get that one big punch.
Exactly.
And Vasquez has had knockouts that weren't like TKOs. Most of his knockouts were standing knockouts. So I give it to Vasquez because I think he can get that one strike. But again, it's so hard to call, Mike. It's so hard.
Yeah, that's true. That's one thing I like about UFC. It's so unpredictable. You never really know because all it takes is one punch to change the whole fight. I don't care how bad you was getting whooped. Like one punch could change the whole fight just like that. You can't blink on UFC.
Definitely, but we know that Congo has some extra motivation. That this will, if he wins this fight, he is in line for a title shot at the heavyweight champion. Whoever that might be after UFC 100.
Oh yeah.
Either Frank or Brock Lesnar. We'll go over that next month. All right, moving on. What's the next fight we got for UFC 99?
We got Dan Hardy. Man, that's gonna be a good one. This one is more than he's fighting Marcus Davis. Man, this is more than just a UFC fight. This is bigger than UFC because this is personal. This is a personal fight. I mean, Dan Hardy, he don't even like this guy Davis because of this Irish thing. You know, he think, oh, you talking about you from Ireland, but you from America. This is deep. This is actually bigger than UFC.
It is. And you know, Dan Hardy is a proud, Englishman. He's from the UK. And recently, you know, Marcus Davis has had, 5 of his last fights in the UK. His last one was actually in Ireland. And he's grown a big fan base over there. And Dan Hardy doesn't like it.
No, he don't. That's why I say this is actually bigger than the UFC. This is personal. Those are my favorite type of fights personally when a fight be personal. Not just business, personal.
Yeah, they're not going to shake hands before the fight.
Nah, ain't going to be no respect.
A lot of verbal jabs were thrown before the fight, especially on Hardy's behalf. He said that Joe Rogan was saying recently on the UFC.com that Dan Hardy was quoted saying that Marcus Davis's website looked like a St. Patty's Day store exploded.
Oh yeah, I seen that. That was crazy. That was straight up crazy. I did hear him say that on the UFC site. That was crazy. Who you think gonna win it? I think Dan gonna win it. I think he's quick. He got a good reach. He good with the jab. He good with the ground and pound. I put my money on Dan Hardy.
Yeah, his last fight, he knocked out Rory Markham in the first round. It was a vicious fight.
Exactly.
Vicious knockout. But you gotta look at Marcus Davis. He's no slouch either. He's got 2 victories. One was by unanimous decision against Chris Lytle. That was in Ireland, his hometown of Ireland. That's when he came out with the Irish kilt, and he was in his homeland of Ireland. That was the first time he fought in Ireland, not England, but Ireland. And that was a proud fight for him. He won. But I thought he might have lost that fight. I think maybe because of the Irish heritage. You never know with the judges how that plays in. He was in Ireland, and I thought Chris Lytle gave him quite a fight. And I was main standing for most of the time, and I thought Chris Lytle won the fight. But we know that Marcus Davis won the fight. But this fight being a neutral ground, it's going to be in Germany. That's what UFC 99 is going to be. And it's going to be a tough fight for both fighters. I think they're going to stand up and bang. Not a lot of technical, not a lot of takedowns. They're looking to knock each other out, definitely.
Yeah.
But I got to give it to Marcus Davis. He's a great veteran of the UFC. He's been in the UFC longer, although they have a similar record. They're both about 21-5 and 21-6. But I think Marcus Davis is going to beat him. I think Marcus Davis can get him. He's just more motivated, I think, to get the victory. He's very angry at Dan Hardy. And also stems from Dan Hardy posting a photo. I don't know too much about this, but he posted a photo of Marcus Davis on a website.
Yeah, I heard something about that.
You can do whatever to the fans, and a lot of disgusting things were made.
Yeah, and he was talking all this stuff about an email too. Mark Davis was saying something about Dan Hardy sending him a bogus email.
Yeah. So a lot of stuff for this fight. We're going to find out some answers. We want answers as fans. We're going to find them out in the octagon at UFC 99.